A billionaire walked past me every night like I did not exist until the flowers arrived. That sentence used to sound dramatic whenever it echoed in my mind, but on the night everything changed, it felt terrifyingly literal. New York was colder than usual, the kind of cold that soaked through cheap jackets and thin gloves, the kind of cold you felt in your bones. The 72-story cross-Capitol building glowed in a blue shade against the winter sky, tall enough to swallow the moon if it tried. I pushed my cleaning cart across the marble floor, the wheels squeaking every few feet. At 2 in the morning, the 71st floor always felt like a place time forgot silent and polished and intimidating. I was used to being invisible. That was the quiet rule of working night shifts as a building maid. My name was Lila Reyes. 24 years old, buried in medical bills from my mother's failing kidneys, juggling rent for a tiny studio in Queens, and working 2 cleaning jobs just to stay afloat. People rushed past me during the day without looking. Managers sent emails reminding the staff not to leave crumbs behind, but no one ever learned my name. Not even the security guards who nodded out of habit rather than acknowledgement, and certainly not the billionaire who owned the building, Aiden Cross, 38. People whispered about him with awe, fear, or both. I saw him nearly every night. Well, not saw in the way people saw each other. He walked the halls like a silent storm, his steps precise, his jaw sharp, his attention pointed at spreadsheets and mergers and decisions worth more than anything I would earn in a lifetime. If someone had told him the girl mopping the floors had a pulse, he might have raised a brow, or maybe he would have just kept walking. That night, though, something broke the pattern. I was pushing my cart toward the end of the hallway on the 70th floor when I stopped so suddenly, the mop handle nearly slipped from my hand. Sitting right on top of the neatly folded cleaning towels was a bouquet of white flowers. Not cheap supermarket flowers. These were elegant and fresh with long stems and soft petals like something placed on a piano at a 5-star gala. My breath caught in my throat. I looked left, then right. The hallway stretched empty in both directions. No footsteps, no shadows, no voices, only silence. There was no note on the bouquet, no signature, no reason on earth it should be sitting on my cart. I reached out and touched a petal. Cold, fresh, recently placed. My heart thudded as the motion detector light at the far end flickered on and off as if someone had moved past it only seconds ago. I stepped back. Who knew I worked here at this hour? Who knew my route? Who knew where I would be standing at precisely 2 in the morning? And why flowers? Who sent flowers to a building maid? My throat tightened. Fear replaced curiosity. I glanced behind me repeatedly, expecting someone to appear. No one did. Then the elevator dinged. I froze. The silver doors slid open, and out stepped Aiden Cross, dressed in a black coat and carrying a tablet glowing with financial data. He walked like he always did, fast, focused, untouched by anything that did not affect the stock market. But then it happened. He looked up. He saw me. Or, more accurately, he saw the bouquet. He stopped walking. This man had walked through emergency board meetings without blinking. Yet here, because of a bouquet on a maid's cart, he paused. For 2 seconds that felt like a crack in the universe, his eyes fixed on the flowers. Then his gaze lifted to me. Sharp, calculating, confused. Sarah Kim, his senior executive assistant, stepped out behind him. She rarely let emotion show, but even she frowned at the sight of the bouquet. Aiden spoke first, his voice low and steady. "Who gave you that?" I swallowed. "I do not know." Aiden studied me then, the bouquet again, as though the arrangement personally offended him. His eyes narrowed by a fraction, a tiny shift most people would miss. Sarah noticed, though. She always noticed. Her gaze flicked between us with something like suspicion or maybe concern. I felt heat crawl up my neck. I was a maid standing in front of a billionaire who never even saw me before this moment holding a bouquet that was not mine. I felt guilty without knowing why. The elevator doors closed behind them as they left. The hallway fell silent again. I stood alone with the flowers, my pulse pounding against my ribs. None of this made sense. No one knew me. No one cared enough to send flowers, and yet someone had gone out of their way to place them exactly where I would find them. I shoved the bouquet into a trash bag, burying the white petals under empty coffee cups and shredded paper, but their scent lingered through the rest of my shift. When my shift ended, I took the subway home. The train rocked back and forth, whispering reminders of overdue bills and medical forms and exhaustion. When I stepped into my small apartment, I reached into my jacket for my keys and felt something crinkled in the pocket, a piece of paper. My stomach dropped. I unfolded it. 6 words stared back at me in delicate handwriting. "You deserve to be seen." The note slipped from my fingers. I stared at it on the floor, breathless, terrified, shaken. Someone knew me. Someone watched me. Someone placed flowers on my cart, and that someone was still close enough to slip a message into my pocket. I did not sleep that night. 2 days passed, and I kept telling myself the flowers had been a strange coincidence, a misunderstanding, a mistake that would never repeat itself. I avoided looking at my jacket pocket where the note had been avoided, thinking about how someone had slipped it inside without me noticing. Avoided remembering the way Aiden Cross had stared at the bouquet like it was a puzzle only he had the right to solve. By the second night, I had convinced myself that nothing else would happen. I would mop the floors, empty the trash wipe down the glass partitions, and make it to sunrise without another shock. But New York rarely cared about what anyone wished for, especially not people like me. When I arrived at the 70th floor that night, the hallway was quiet the way only expensive silence could be. My sneakers squeaked on the marble. I pushed my cart toward the east wing where the large conference rooms were. I had taken only 10 steps when I saw it. Another bouquet. This time it was not on my cart. It was placed carefully on the low table beside the glass railing, tilted slightly so the flowers faced the precise direction where I always stopped to refill the mop bucket. Someone had studied me, watched me, learned my routine. A chill ran up my spine. The bouquet was larger than the first. White lilies mixed with soft roses wrapped in satin ribbon that looked more expensive than my monthly groceries. There was a folded note tucked beneath one of the petals. My fingers trembled as I reached for it. "Someone should have noticed you long before this." My throat tightened. The words were gentle, but they felt like a trap. I looked around again. Empty hall. Motion sensors dimmed. Air vents humming faintly. No sign of movement. Whoever sent this knew exactly where to put it and exactly when I would see it. I gripped the note so hard the paper bent. This was not romantic. This was not sweet. This was someone crossing a boundary I did not even know existed. Before I could decide whether to throw the flowers away or run downstairs to call security, the sound of footsteps echoed behind me. Slow, controlled, familiar. I did not need to turn around to know who it was. Aiden Cross walked into the hallway with Sarah beside him, both dressed sharply as if they had just stepped out of a late board meeting. The fluorescent lights reflected off his coat as his gaze locked immediately on the bouquet, then on me, then back on the bouquet again. His expression tightened by a fraction. Not enough for most people to notice, but enough that I felt the shift in the air. Sarah spoke first, her tone neutral. "Another one." Aiden did not answer her. He took a step closer, then another. Soon he was only a few feet away, close enough that I could see the faint lines of exhaustion around his eyes, the kind that came from carrying an empire on his shoulders. "Who sent it?" His voice was low, steady, but under it I sensed a tension he had not shown the last time. I shook my head. "I told you I do not know." Aiden studied my face as if searching for a truth I did not have. His gaze dropped to the note, still in my hand. May I see that I hesitated, then handed it over. His fingers brushed mine for less than a second, a brief accidental contact, but even that felt startling after being invisible to him for so long. He read the message without changing expression, but Sarah shifted beside him. "This is concerning," she murmured. Aiden folded the note once and returned it to me. His jaw moved slightly as if he were holding back words. "You should not walk the halls alone tonight," he said finally. There was no warmth in the statement. It was not protective the way people imagined romance to be. It was clinical, strategic, as if he were filing a risk report. I straightened my shoulders, trying to keep fear out of my voice. This is my job. I cannot just stop working because someone thinks sending flowers is appropriate. Aiden did not like that answer. The hint of tension in his eyes sharpened. Do you feel safe? I opened my mouth, then closed it again. I did not feel unsafe exactly, but I did not feel safe either. I felt watched, known, tracked, and the worst part was that those feelings seemed to matter to him. Sarah cleared her throat. We can alert security to patrol the floor. I do not want security involved, I said quickly. Attention was the last thing I needed. Rumors spread fast in corporate buildings. I already felt the stares during shift change, the way people glanced at me as if wondering why a maid was coming out of the elevator at the same time as a billionaire. Aiden held my gaze for a long moment. His expression was unreadable, yet intense enough to make my stomach twist. Then he surprised me. If anything else appears, let me know directly, I blinked. You want me to inform you? He nodded once. I felt my face warm with discomfort. Why would a billionaire CEO ask a building maid to report to him? Anything regarding employee safety falls under my responsibility, he replied. His tone remained controlled, but it carried something else too, something heavier, something I could not name. Before I could respond, a group of employees emerged from the far end of the hallway, laughing loudly. They stopped when they saw the bouquet, then saw me, then saw the CEO standing inches away. Their laughter died, instantly replaced by stares sharp enough to cut. Just like that, a rumor was born. I wished I could disappear. Sarah noticed the exchanged looks and stepped forward slightly as if shielding the situation, but Aiden spoke first. Back to work, he said to the employees, his voice firm and absolute. They scattered quickly, leaving the three of us in awkward silence. I picked up the bouquet with stiff hands, feeling every stare lingering in the air even after the hallway emptied. I will throw it away, I whispered. Aiden exhaled slowly, a breath that sounded more frustrated than relieved. Do what makes you feel safe, he said, then turned and walked away with Sarah trailing behind him. But as he stepped into the elevator, he looked back only once, but enough to unsettle me in a way the flowers never could. Because for the second time in my life, the billionaire who never noticed me had stopped to look. By the next evening, the atmosphere inside Cross Capital had shifted in a way that made my skin prickle before I even reached the 70th floor. I felt it the moment I stepped into the employee entrance. The two receptionists stopped whispering when I walked by. The security guard, who usually waved without looking up, suddenly offered a stiff nod, his eyes flicking to me and then away as if I carried something dangerous. I kept walking, pretending not to notice, but a tightness settled in my chest. Word had spread. Not the truth, of course. Rumors never carried truth. Only imagination. And in a skyscraper full of ambition, imagination always spiraled toward scandal. The elevator doors closed around me, and I leaned against the cool metal, trying to steady my breathing. I reminded myself I had done nothing wrong. I was a maid. I cleaned floors. I minded my own business. I did not ask for flowers. I did not ask for a billionaire to stop and speak to me. But none of that mattered in a place where hierarchy was practically religion. When I reached the 70th floor, I did not even have to look up to feel eyes following me. Two analysts who shared an office near the conference rooms peeked over their cubicle wall, whispering behind their hands as I pushed my cart past. A woman in a navy suit pretended to straighten papers, but her gaze lingered far too long. There was a sudden awareness in the room, a hum, a tension like everyone was waiting for something to happen. The biggest mistake was pretending I did not see any of it. I moved along the hallway, forced myself to mop the tile corners like always, but my thoughts raced. I needed this job. I needed the paycheck. I could not afford to lose either. I was bending down to empty a trash bin when I heard a click, a camera shutter. I straightened so fast the bin nearly slipped from my hand. At the other end of the corridor, a junior associate stood frozen in place, phone half raised, face pale. He had clearly meant to take a photo of me with my cart, maybe hoping to capture the mysterious flowers that were no longer there, or maybe just hoping to snag the next big rumor. When he realized I had caught him, he panicked. "Sorry," he blurted and stumbled backward. "I did not mean to. I swear, I was just—" I forced my voice to remain steady even though anger pulsed under my ribs. "You do not take photos of staff without their consent." His cheeks flushed crimson. "I am sorry," he repeated, then hurried away as if running from a crime scene. I exhaled slowly, gripping the handle of my cart until my fingers numbed. This was getting worse. Much worse. I wheeled the cart toward the glass railing overlooking the lobby below, trying to calm myself. That was when I felt the weight of another gaze. A heavier one. A deliberate one. I turned. Aiden Cross stood outside the large boardroom, hand on the doorframe as if he had paused mid-step. He was talking to Sarah, but his eyes were on me. Not on the mop, not on the cart, not on the floor, on me. A ripple of confusion passed through me. I had spent nearly a year watching him walk past me without a flicker of recognition. Now, every time I looked up, he was already looking. He held my gaze for a moment too long before Sarah nudged him gently, reminding him of whatever meeting they were late for. He shifted his attention, but not fast enough to escape the notice of half the floor. I felt it. The shift. The escalation. Someone 3 desks down whispered, "And there it is." Another responded quietly. I knew something was going on. My pulse spiked. This was out of control. I grabbed my cart and headed for the smaller corridor where fewer people passed. If I could just keep my head down, maybe the storm would die before it destroyed me. But Cross Capital was not merciful, and people were not kind when stories were more exciting than truth. As I reached the end of the hallway, Sarah caught up with me. She was calm, professional, but her expression was softer than usual. "Lila," she said in a low voice, "you should be aware that people are talking." I stared at her heart, thudding. I know. She nodded. Her eyes held something like sympathy, though I doubted she ever allowed herself to show it fully. "Rumors spread quickly here. It is unfortunate you were caught in the middle." I swallowed. "I did not do anything, I know, and Aiden knows, but that is not always enough to stop a story once it starts." I hated how my throat tightened at the sound of his name. Aiden. CEO or not, he was a man who should not have been tangled in my life in any capacity. I forced myself to ask the question I dreaded. "Is he upset about the rumors?" She hesitated. "Not in the way you think?" I frowned. Sarah gave a small exhale as if choosing her words carefully. "Aiden does not like anything that disrupts the efficiency of this place. The rumors are doing that. And what happened last night only made people focus on you more." My voice came out thin. "Because he spoke to me. Because he stopped." Sarah nodded. "People rarely see him break routine. You were part of that break." I stared down at my gloved hands gripping the cart. Breaking routine. As if I had chosen any of this. As if flowers and stares and whispers were things I wanted. "I just want to do my job," I murmured. "I know," she said again. Then even softer she added, "And for what it is worth, I do not think you have done anything wrong." Her kindness nearly undid me. I looked away so she would not see the tears threatening to gather. Sarah gently touched my arm, then walked back toward the boardroom. I emptied another bin and tried to pretend my life had not tilted. But things were different now. Every footstep behind me made me tense. Every glance felt loaded. Every whisper sounded like my name, even when it was not. I had become visible. But not in the way I wanted. Not in the way the mysterious notes insisted I deserved. And in the quiet of the 70th floor, where success echoed louder than kindness, I began to wonder if being seen was not a blessing, but the beginning of something dangerous. Aiden Cross prided himself on being predictable. Predictability meant control, and control meant stability, and stability meant survival, in a world where weakness was crushed before it took its second breath. That was how he built Cross Capital before he turned 40. That was how he kept shareholders calm during volatile quarters. That was how he maintained an empire. But for the first time in years, his mind refused to stay inside its usual lines. It kept drifting to a place it had never gone before: the empty hallways of the 70th floor and the girl pushing a cleaning cart. Leila Reyes. He learned her name that morning without meaning to. He overheard it while walking past the operations office. One of the supervisors had said something about the night crew, and the name slipped into the air like a secret that should not have escaped. Hearing it felt strange. Foreign. Too real. He had always known the names of executives and partners and board members, but the name of a maid should not have stayed in his head. And yet, it did. Aiden sat in his office overlooking the city, a view he had stopped appreciating long ago. The skyline was muted behind the glass, but the weight in his chest was sharp. He tried focusing on the quarterly projections. He read the same paragraph 3 times. His mind would not lock in. Instead, it replayed the moment he first saw the bouquet on her cart, the way she had gripped the handle as if it were both anchor and shield, the flicker of fear in her eyes when she admitted she did not know who sent it. He remembered the second bouquet strategically placed exactly where she would see it. Someone had studied her routine. Someone knew her schedule. The thought made something tighten inside him. He had assumed annoyance at first. Now he recognized it for what it was: concern. He did not like that recognition. He did not like that someone had crossed into her world without permission. He did not like that she was too afraid to involve security. He did not like realizing he had walked past her for almost a year without noticing her existence. He leaned back in his chair, pressing his fingertips together, a habit he developed in childhood whenever his thoughts knotted too tightly. Childhood. The word itself tasted bitter. His father had built fortunes and destroyed reputations with equal ease. But the one thing he valued above all was hierarchy. People belonged in categories. Some mattered. Some did not. Most did not. From age 10, Aiden learned that people who cleaned floors fell into the category of not worth noticing. The memory scraped something inside him. Was he repeating that cruelty without even realizing? A knock at the door pulled him back. Sarah stepped inside with a tablet held to her chest. She studied him for a fraction of a second, the way she always did, measuring what she saw against what she knew. "Your 9 o'clock meeting starts in 5 minutes, she said. He nodded, but she did not leave. Instead, she lowered her voice. "People are talking." Aiden drummed his fingers once against the desk. "About what?" Sarah hesitated. "About you and the maid." He did not react outwardly. Years of discipline buried every emotion beneath iron steadiness. But something snapped faintly inside him. Irritation or something uncomfortably close to protectiveness. "They can talk," he said. "It does not concern me." Sarah tilted her head, evaluating. "It concerns her." He looked at her sharply. Sarah continued. "I saw her today. People were staring. She looked uncomfortable. She is just trying to work. She did not ask for any of this." Aiden exhaled slowly, the kind of breath that released nothing. "I know. Do you?" She asked it respectfully but directly. Few people dared challenge him. Sarah was one of them. Aiden closed the tablet and stood adjusting the cuff of his suit. "What are you implying?" "Nothing. Simply observing. Something is clearly happening around her, and you reacted strongly to it last night." Aiden froze. He turned his gaze toward the window. The city sparkled below like a circuit board. "I reacted because it was a security concern." Sarah did not argue, but she did not look convinced either. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I have worked with you 7 years, Aiden. I know the difference between security concern and something that unsettles you personally." He said nothing. His silence was enough confirmation. Sarah switched the tablet on and showed him the latest internal communication metrics. Rumors were tracking through Slack channels, anonymous threads, whispers in the elevators. It had spread faster than he expected, faster than he wanted, faster than she deserved. Aiden felt his jaw tighten. His company was a machine. Rumors were sand. Sand slowed engines. He hated inefficiency, but this time it was not the company he worried about. It was her. He replayed her expression from the night before, the way she grabbed the bouquet as if embarrassed by attention that was never meant for her, the way she insisted on working despite the fear in her eyes. She was private, careful, a quiet person in a loud world. The flowers were not admiration to her. They were intrusion, and somehow he had become tangled in that intrusion simply by noticing. Aiden sank into his chair again, feeling the unwelcome truth settle heavy in his chest. He had become part of the problem. By breaking routine for 2 seconds, he had invited speculation that now swarmed around her like gnats. Sarah closed the tablet. If the rumors continue, she will be blamed, even if she has nothing to do with them. You know how this place works. Aiden did know. He knew too well. Ambition made people cruel. Gossip made them efficient. Vulnerability made them targets. He realized then that ignoring the situation was no longer an option. His father might have walked away without a thought. Aiden could not anymore. Not after seeing her stand alone in that hallway holding fear disguised as flowers. He rubbed his temple. Find out who had access to her floor during her shift. Quietly, Sarah nodded. And her schedule. He hesitated, then answered slowly. No changes. Let her work normally. She does not want attention. Sarah studied him again as if cataloging a man she thought she already understood. Very well. She left the room with the same quiet efficiency she always carried. Aiden remained still for a long time. The city outside kept buzzing, but inside his office the world narrowed to one truth he could not ignore. Something about Lila Reyes unsettled him. Not because she disrupted his focus, but because she exposed a part of him he believed long dead. A part that remembered what it felt like to be overlooked. A part that hated seeing it happen to someone else. And though he did not know what would happen next, he knew one thing with uncomfortable certainty. He noticed her now, and that was a shift he could not undo. By the 5th night, after the first flowers appeared, I was already carrying the kind of tension that settled between my shoulder blades like a permanent knot. Every time the elevator dinged, I stiffened. Every time footsteps echoed in a hallway, I glanced over my shoulder. I kept telling myself I was being dramatic, but the truth was simpler. I felt hunted. Not in a violent way, in a watched way. In a way that made my nerves sharpen when I stepped onto the 70th floor again. I pushed my cart toward the janitor's room, hoping that tonight would finally be quiet. No flowers, no whispers, no stares. Just silence and work. Work was predictable. Work never surprised me. But as soon as I reached the door of the small staff break room, my heart collapsed into my stomach. Another bouquet waited there. Bigger, fuller, whiter. Roses and lilies layered like they had been arranged by a professional florist. The bouquet leaned against the door like it had been placed carefully, almost reverently, as though someone believed this was a gift I would treasure. But all I felt was dread. The satin ribbon shimmered under the fluorescent lights. A folded note peeked out from the stems. My hands shook as I reached for it. Your kindness changed someone's life. I inhaled sharply, then looked around the hallway. Empty. Too empty. I crouched and touched one of the petals, still fresh, still cold. Someone had been here not long before me. My voice trembled even though no one was there to hear it. This needs to stop. I reached for the bouquet to throw it away to end whatever game this was before it cost me my job. But my hands froze when I heard footsteps behind me. My pulse thundered. For the second time in less than a week, I did not have to turn around to know who it was. Aiden Cross stepped closer, his polished shoes silent against the carpet. The moment he saw the bouquet, something shifted in his face. It was not shock anymore. It was something heavier, something protective, something bordering on anger. The third one, he said quietly. His voice carried a weight that settled into my ribs. I tightened my grip on the note. I do not know who is doing this. Aiden's eyes stayed on the bouquet for a long moment before moving to me. He looked like a man calculating risks, threats, motives. But underneath that logic there was something else. Something personal. He stepped closer. This is not acceptable. His tone was low but not directed at me, directed at the situation, at whoever was behind it. I shook my head quickly. "Please, do not make this bigger. I do not need attention." His expression tightened. Attention is exactly what whoever did this wants. My throat constricted. Why would anyone want attention through me? I am not someone people notice. Aiden stared at me, then shook his head slightly, almost disbelieving. "That is the problem. You should have been noticed." The words hit harder than the note in my hand. I swallowed. The situation was getting worse, and we both knew it. As if on cue, 2 employees from the finance department rounded the corner, saw Aiden standing near me again, saw the bouquet at my feet, and exchanged looks that told me all I needed to know. Rumors were turning into certainty. They scurried away before anyone could speak. My stomach knotted with panic. I whispered, "Please. People already think something is happening. If they see this again, I could lose my job." Aiden's gaze darkened not at me but at the implication that I would pay the price for something I had not done. "That will not happen." His tone was final, decisive, but it did nothing to ease the dread rising inside me. He was a billionaire CEO. His words held weight. Mine did not. He stepped beside me, not too close, but close enough that I could feel his presence. "Did you read the note?" I nodded silently and handed it to him. He read it with slow precision, then folded it and returned it to me. "Whoever sent these flowers thinks they know something about you." My heartbeat roared in my ears. I did not help anyone recently except a colleague from my other job, and that was just holding an elevator. Nothing like this. Aiden watched me the way he watched financial inconsistencies, with that same unwavering focus. "3 bouquets in 1 week, he murmured. "This is intentional." My chest tightened. I know. The thought made me cold from the inside out. I do not want any of this. I just want to work. Aiden inhaled slowly as though struggling with something. Then his voice softened barely. "You should not have to be afraid for doing your job." His words were so unexpected my breath hitched. No one had ever spoken to me like that. Before either of us could say more, footsteps echoed from the far end of the hallway. A manager from HR appeared, looking irritated and tired, the combination that always meant trouble. Her eyes landed on the bouquet, then on me, then on Aiden, and the calculation was instant. "Lila," she said, drawling out my name like a reprimand. "I need you to come with me." My stomach dropped. HR. The worst possible timing. Aiden straightened, looking sharper, more focused. For what he asked? The HR manager stiffened, clearly thrown by his involvement. "There have been concerns," she said vaguely. Questions about what Aiden's voice was cool, but carried a warning. She flinched before answering. About boundaries, about workplace decorum, and photographs. Photographs. Panic surged through me. That boy from the other night. The one who tried to take a picture. I opened my mouth to explain, but the HR manager cut me off. "We will discuss it privately, in my office, now." My legs felt unsteady. Aiden looked like he wanted to intervene, but he did not. Not yet. His jaw clenched. His eyes flicked to the bouquet, then back to me. "Go," he said softly. His tone held something unspoken, something that steadied me for half a breath. Sarah appeared behind him as if summoned by tension. She gave me a faint, reassuring nod. I followed the HR manager down the corridor, feeling every whisper, every stare, every rumor curling behind me like smoke. As I walked away, I looked back once. Aiden was still standing near the bouquet, hands in his pockets, expression unreadable but eyes sharp with something unmistakable. Anger, concern, and something else I could not name. What I did know was the flowers were no longer the scariest part of my week. The scariest part was that the billionaire who once never saw me now refused to look away. The HR meeting did not go the way I feared, but it did not go the way I hoped either. Most of it was filled with thinly veiled insinuations, polite corporate phrasing that hid sharp edges, and questions framed as concern but designed to protect the company, not me. They asked about the flowers. I told them I did not know who sent them. They asked why the CEO had spoken to me multiple times. I said I did not ask for his attention. They asked about the photograph. I explained what happened. They nodded, but did not apologize for assuming the worst. In the end, I walked out with a warning in my file, not for misconduct but for being at the center of distraction, which somehow felt worse. When I stepped out into the lobby 2 hours later, exhausted and shaken, I was ready to go home and hide under my blankets until the world forgot about me again. The lobby of Cross Capital at that hour was unusually busy. Workers rushed past with suit jackets slung over one arm, phones pressed to their ears, voices filled with urgency. People who worked in buildings like this always had somewhere to be, and they moved like the world depended on their speed. But in the middle of all that noise and movement stood a man who did not belong there. He was older, maybe early 60s, with silver hair combed neatly to the side, wearing a heavy coat and an expression that held neither hurry nor hesitation. He stood near the security desk, scanning the crowd as though waiting for someone. I would have walked past him without a second thought if he had not spoken my name. Miss Reyes. His voice was calm and polite, but it rooted me to the marble floor. I turned slowly. He smiled with warmth so unexpected that it made suspicion prick my skin. "Yes," I answered cautiously. He stepped closer but kept a respectful distance. "You do not know who I am," he said gently, "but 6 months ago you helped me." My brows pinched. "I think you have the wrong person." "I helped no one." He shook his head. "You did. You were working the night shift in the underground garage of St. Mary Hospital. You found me when I collapsed beside my car. You called an ambulance. You stayed until they arrived." Memories stirred slowly like dust lifting in a quiet room. I remembered that night, a long shift at my second job, a man lying on the cold concrete floor, pale and shaking. I had run for help without thinking, knelt beside him, even though I was terrified, and stayed until the paramedics took over. I never learned his name. The man smiled as if reading the recognition forming on my face. "I am Ethan Ward," he said. "I own a small manufacturing company in Long Island. The doctor said I survived because someone found me in time, because you found me." I stared at him stunned. I never expected gratitude. People rarely thanked cleaners for anything. I opened my mouth, but words tangled in my throat. Ethan continued. "I tried to find you earlier, but the hospital would not share employee information. And when I asked around, your supervisor said you were quiet and hard to track down. I felt a mix of embarrassment and disbelief. Why are you here?" He looked almost apologetic. "I wanted to thank you. Properly." I shook my head. "You already did." He tilted his head. "No, I did not. You saved my life, Miss Reyes. At least allow me to express what that meant to me." I glanced around the lobby, acutely aware of eyes drifting in our direction. A maid, speaking with a distinguished older man, might have looked normal, but in the wake of the flowers and rumors, nothing felt normal. Ethan hesitated, then added quietly, "I am sorry if the flowers caused trouble." My breath stilled. "The flowers," I repeated. "All of them?" His eyes softened. "Yes, I sent them. Gratitude comes in many forms. I wanted you to know you were not forgotten." Air rushed out of me in a shaky exhale. Relief flooded my body so quickly my knees almost gave out. Someone was grateful, not obsessed, not stalking, just grateful. But the relief did not last long because behind Ethan's shoulder I saw movement that made my stomach twist. Aiden Cross had just stepped out of the elevator. His eyes scanned the lobby like he was searching for something or someone. Then they found me. Then they found Ethan, and they hardened. He walked toward us with long steps that drew attention without trying. Conversations in the lobby softened as people sensed the presence of their CEO. Ethan turned upon noticing Aiden approaching. "Ah, Mr. Cross," he said pleasantly. "I assume you are the one who oversees this entire operation." Aiden did not answer immediately. His gaze flicked between me and Ethan with an expression so composed that only someone who knew how to read silence could see the tension beneath it. "That depends," Aiden said in a tone both polite and cool. "What brings you here?" Ethan extended his hand. "Gratitude. Your employee saved my life months ago. I wanted to find her and thank her personally. Aiden's jaw tightened just slightly. His eyes moved to me again, searching, scanning, measuring. Something about his posture shifted almost imperceptibly, a quiet defensiveness that felt out of place but unmistakable. Ethan continued completely unaware of the undercurrent. I also wanted to apologize to her. My attempt at gratitude clearly caused her more stress than comfort. Aiden turned to me. "Is that true?" His voice was softer than before, but there was a rigidity beneath it. A protective thread woven through calm professionalism. Heat crept up my neck. Yes, the flowers made things difficult at work, but I know now they were harmless. Ethan nodded with genuine remorse. I should have foreseen that anonymous gestures could be misunderstood. I will not send any more. The words eased one fear but created a new one because the lobby was watching, and though people could not hear the conversation, they could see me standing between two men who definitely did not blend into a crowd. Aiden spoke again. "Mr. Ward, thank you for clarifying." Ethan offered me one last kind smile. "If you ever need help with anything, please reach out." He slipped a business card into my hand, bowed slightly in gratitude, then walked toward the exit. The revolving doors closed behind him, leaving me alone with Aiden in the center of the lobby under too many eyes. Aiden stepped closer. Too close. Close enough that I felt the question he carried before he spoke it. "Are you all right?" His tone had shifted again, lower, steadier edged with concern he probably did not want anyone else to detect. I swallowed. I am fine. I was not, and he knew. His gaze lingered on my face long enough that the stares from nearby employees felt heavier. He noticed, too. His expression darkened. "Come with me," he said quietly. Not a demand, not an order, something else. I hesitated. "People are watching," he responded without looking away. "Let them." A shiver ran through me, not of fear but of something I could not name. Something dangerous in a different way, something that whispered that the flowers were never the real turning point. The real turning point was this: the moment the billionaire who once walked past me without a glance now stood still because I was there. Aiden did not lead me far. Only to a quieter corner of the lobby where tall pillars shielded us from the curious eyes scattered everywhere. But the whispers still drifted through the air like dust stirred by a passing train. People did not need to hear words to build stories. They only needed angles, glances, and gaps to fill with assumptions. And assumptions were already multiplying around us. Aiden stood with his hands in his pockets, posture composed, but charged with something unspoken. I could feel it in the way he watched me as if assessing the invisible damage spreading through my day. "Are you sure you are all right?" he asked again. His tone was steady, controlled, but not as detached as before. I nodded because nodding was easier than telling the truth, but my voice betrayed me. "I am tired." That was all I managed. His jaw tightened. "Tired of the flowers. Tired of the rumors. Or tired of being pulled into something against your will." I hesitated. All of it. He nodded once as if confirming something he already suspected. "I am sorry this became worse before it became clearer." The apology startled me. Not because he said it, but because he meant it. Aiden Cross did not apologize lightly. Before I could respond, a group of employees walked by, slowing down just enough to stare. Aiden noticed. His stance shifted, subtle but unmistakable, a protective instinct tightening across his shoulders. He waited until they were out of earshot. "The rumors have accelerated," he said. "People are distributing speculation across internal channels. Slack threads, office chats, anonymous posts." I felt my stomach twist. About me, he exhaled. About us. Heat flooded my face even though the idea was absurd. There was no us, not even close, and yet that was exactly the story spreading through the building. I steadied myself. "I did not do anything wrong. I know, but they do not." He said it with a quiet ferocity that made my pulse jump. "Employees rarely see nuance. They see patterns. You received flowers. I approached you. We were seen talking. Now, that is enough for them to form a conclusion. I hated how true that sounded. Why do they care so much? Because scandal makes people feel powerful. He answered it without hesitation, as if the truth was something he had carried a long time. It gives them something to dissect, something to distract from their own lives. I swallowed hard. Does HR think we are doing something wrong? Aiden paused. The kind of pause that said the truth was complicated. I knew then that yes, the idea had entered HR rooms. I pressed my hand against my forehead. This is ruining everything. My job, my reputation. People think I am involved in something I am not. Aiden's voice dropped lower. Lila, look at me. I did. His expression was serious but not cold. This is not your fault, and you will not lose your job. I promise you that. His promise should have comforted me, but instead it sparked something painful because I should not need a billionaire to protect my job. My dignity recoiled at the imbalance, even though part of me knew he was trying to help. Before I could respond, one of the junior managers rushed down the stairs holding a tablet. She saw us and froze, then pretended to check her notifications while sneaking glances our way. Aiden's gaze flicked toward her. She flushed and hurried past. Every interaction felt like another piece of a story being assembled. A story I had no control over. I exhaled shakily. The truth is out there now. Everyone knows Mr. Ward sent the flowers. The misunderstanding should end. The misunderstanding, he echoed quietly. Then his expression changed. Not quite softer, but heavier, as if something pressed against him from inside. You told him the flowers caused trouble, that they made things difficult for you. I nodded, and he apologized. Another nod, and yet instead of relief you look worse than before. I did not want to admit it, but he was right. I finally answered. The truth should have helped. But somehow it made the rumors stronger. My voice cracked in frustration. Because people saw us talking again. Because people saw him, and you, and me, together. It was not supposed to mean anything. But here it means everything. Aiden stepped closer by an inch, barely noticeable, but enough to feel the shift. Lila, the truth does matter. It will take time, but it will matter. A humorless laugh slipped from my throat. In places like this, truth tends to be the last thing anyone cares about. His lips pressed together. I will fix this. I shook my head, quick and instinctive. You cannot fix this. If you try, people will think there is something to hide. They will think the rumors are real. They will think I am receiving special treatment. I cannot afford that. I need this job. My voice wavered at the last word. He noticed. He always noticed now, and that realization made my heart twist painfully. Aiden lowered his voice so only I could hear. You should never be punished for being seen. The words pierced something deep. But they also terrified me because being seen had already cost me more than being invisible ever did. Footsteps echoed across the marble floor. Someone else was approaching. Someone purposeful. Sarah appeared around the corner, tablet in hand, expression tight. Aiden, we have a problem, she said quickly. His posture sharpened instantly. What happened? She handed him the tablet. It showed a screenshot of a private chat thread. Anonymous comments, dozens of them. Rumors that twisted the flowers into something suggestive. Comments implying I was involved with him, that I leveraged attention, that I sought special treatment, and one comment that made the blood drain from my face. Someone had posted a blurry photo of me and Aiden talking in the hallway. A photo from last night. The caption read, I told you something was going on. My chest constricted. They are posting photos of me. His eyes hardened. His voice dropped. This is unacceptable. Sarah looked sympathetic but firm. The problem is spreading fast. If we do not address it soon, it could escalate beyond the building. I felt dizzy. Beyond the building, meaning social media, public accusations. My hands trembled. I cannot, I whispered. I cannot be dragged into something like this. I did nothing wrong. Sarah placed a gentle hand on my arm. I know. That is why you need to be careful. Aiden spoke before she could continue. No, she should not have to be careful. The people targeting her should be. Heat rose in my throat at the fierceness in his tone, but it only made everything more complicated. Sarah glanced between us. "What do you want to do?" she asked Aiden. He looked at me, then answered quietly but with steel in his voice. "I want the truth out. I want the speculation shut down, and I want her protected from the fallout she had no part in creating." His words should have reassured me, but instead they made the pain worse, because the more he stepped into the situation, the deeper I became entangled in something I could not control. And for the first time I realized the truth hurt more than the misunderstanding, because the truth revealed something neither of us could say aloud. Yet both of us felt. He cared, and people were watching. The moment Sarah said the situation was escalating, the air in the lobby changed. It was subtle at first, a shift in tone, a quiet tightening like the building itself sensed the brewing storm. Aiden dismissed the next meeting on his calendar with a flick of his hand, which alone was enough to rattle half the executive floor, because he never canceled meetings. Not for weather, not for illness, not even for board demands. But now he ignored a room full of VPs because of me. And that terrified me more than any rumor. "Lila," he said softly, "we need to go upstairs. HR wants to speak with us both." My stomach dropped so fast it felt like I missed a stare. Both I repeated. His eyes met mine, steady, determined. "They requested you. I requested me." Panic flickered through me. A CEO demanding to be part of an HR meeting involving a maid was not normal. Not even close. That alone could feed rumors for another week. I whispered, "Aiden, please do not get more involved. It will look worse." His jaw tightened the way it did when someone lied in a pitch meeting. "This is already worse." Silence stretched between us. He gestured toward the elevator. "Come on." I followed because refusing would have created a scene. And scenes spread faster than truth. The elevator ride felt longer than any ride I had taken before. Aiden stood on my right, Sarah on my left. I could feel their attention even though none of us spoke. At the 65th floor, the doors opened and two analysts waiting to board froze mid-step when they saw us. Their eyes rounded, their confusion sharpened, their brains spun with assumptions. Aiden pressed the door close button without looking at them. The elevator climbed. When we reached the HR floor, the hallway was buzzing with an unusual tension, as if whispers had gripped the air and refused to let go. The glass walls reflected dozens of eyes as employees sensed the presence of the CEO and whatever drama followed him. The HR director, Ms. Halston, waited at the end of the corridor. Middle-aged, sharp professional, the kind of woman who could watch your life unravel and still offer you a company-branded water bottle. She gave me a stiff nod. "Miss Reyes, thank you for coming." Then she turned to Aiden, and her voice softened in a way that annoyed me. "Mr. Cross, we did not expect you." Aiden's expression did not change. "I am here voluntarily. This concerns me as well." She blinked, quickly recalibrating. "Of course. Please step inside." Her office was bright and modern, with a wall of awards celebrating workplace culture that suddenly felt ironic. I sat on one side of the table while Aiden and Sarah remained standing behind me. That alone created an imbalance I did not want. It felt like I had a billionaire shadow guarding me and a corporate system dissecting me. Ms. Halston folded her hands. "Let us begin." She spoke with careful neutrality, but her eyes carried something sharper, something evaluative. "We have received concerns from staff and management regarding recent interactions between you and Mr. Cross." I stiffened. "I have done nothing inappropriate." The HR director nodded. "That is not what we are claiming, but the appearance of impropriety can sometimes be as disruptive as the act itself." My stomach twisted. Appearance, meaning the rumors, the flowers, the photo, the whispers that multiplied like mold. She continued, "There is a circulating image of you and Mr. Cross speaking on the 70th floor. People have interpreted it in various ways." "Interpreted," I repeated, feeling my voice scrape raw. "Meaning fabricated stories based on nothing." Sarah stepped forward. The photo was taken without her consent. That should be addressed. Ms. Halston offered a diplomatic smile. We will consider disciplinary action for the employee involved, but the wider issue remains. The rumors are escalating. Mr. Cross, your repeated presence with Miss Reyes has created questions. Aiden spoke with calm authority. Questions are not evidence. The HR director's composure flickered. Of course, but we must consider the integrity of workplace boundaries. It is our duty to ensure that both status and power do not unintentionally create pressured dynamics. My chest tightened at the implication. They were not accusing him directly, but they were circling the idea. Lila, she continued, turning to me. Has Mr. Cross made you uncomfortable? I inhaled sharply. No. She hesitated. You may answer freely. We want honesty. He has never made me uncomfortable, I said again, this time louder. He has only tried to help. HR exchanged a glance, the kind that suggested help could also be perceived as influence. Miss Halston continued. And the flowers? You maintain that they did not come from Mr. Cross. I stared at her stunned. I said they did not. I told you who sent them. Did you verify with the individual? She asked. She asked it so calmly, so smoothly, that it took a full second for the insult to land. She did not believe me. She believed the rumors more than my truth. Aiden's voice turned colder than the marble floors outside. Are you suggesting that Miss Reyes fabricated the story? She paled. No, that is not what I meant. But due diligence is important. Then speak with Mr. Ward yourself. He is reachable. He left his card. His tone carried a warning that made even Sarah glance at him. HR nodded reluctantly. We will. Then her tone sharpened on me. Regardless of the source of the flowers, the attention around you is disrupting workflow. We have discussed potential solutions. Solutions? My hands curled in my lap. You mean punishment? Her lips twitched. Not punishment, adjustment. We could change your shift, or move you to a floor with less visibility. I stared at her in disbelief. Less visibility, as if being invisible was where I belonged, as if my existence was the root of this, not the rumors, not the photos, not the assumptions. Before I could respond, Aiden spoke. Absolutely not. His voice cut across the room like a blade. HR stiffened. Mr. Cross, this matter relates to chain of command, and I am telling you that she will not bear the consequence for other people's misconduct. He said it so firmly I almost forgot to breathe. Miss Reyes should not have to uproot her entire job because employees cannot control their curiosity. HR attempted to recover. Then, what do you propose, Mr. Cross? He paused. His voice steadied. Remove me from any direct involvement with her department so there is no perceived power imbalance. Sarah stared at him surprised. HR stared at him stunned. I stared at him speechless. Aiden continued. She reports to operations. I have no operational authority. Make that formal. Document it. HR blinked again, as if the CEO volunteering to limit his own authority was so foreign that her brain struggled to process it. But eventually, she nodded slowly. If that is your request, we will file it. Good, he answered coolly. Now, let us address the real issue, the rumor itself and the photograph. There will be consequences for anonymous targeted commentary. HR forced a smile. We will look into it. Aiden's tone sharpened. You will more than look. You will act. For a long moment the room was so quiet I could hear my heartbeat. Then HR finally dismissed me. I stood up feeling shaky, relieved, angry, and overwhelmed all at once. As I stepped toward the door I felt Aiden behind me, his voice low enough only I could hear. You are not alone in this. I turned, slightly meeting his eyes. That scared me more than anything. Because the more he tried to shield me, the more people would believe the one thing neither of us could say, that he saw me, and that was already dangerous. When I left the HR office, I thought the worst was over, but the hallway outside felt even heavier than the room we had just escaped. Employees passed by with the stiff awkwardness of people pretending not to stare while absolutely staring. Some lowered their eyes quickly when I caught them, others let their gazes linger a few seconds too long as if searching for proof of a rumor they already believed. I kept walking, clutching my cleaning cart handle for balance even though I was not working this floor and did not need the cart. I needed something to hold something real, something that did not shift with rumors. I turned the corner hoping to disappear into the back stairwell for a moment of quiet, but Aiden caught up to me before I reached the door. "Leela, wait." His voice was softer than before, but still urgent. I stopped because ignoring him would have been impossible in that moment for reasons that scared me. He stepped closer, keeping his distance enough to respect the boundary he had just defended in front of HR, but near enough that I felt the weight of his presence. "I know that was difficult," he said. "I am sorry HR handled it the way they did." "They just did their job," I murmured. "And they did it poorly," he replied with a quiet conviction that startled me. "They should have protected you, not placed the burden on you." My chest tightened. He said protected like it meant something deeper, like there was something in me he wanted to defend, not out of responsibility but out of something else he refused to name. I lowered my voice. "You should not have gone so far for me. People will think you are involved." He exhaled slowly. "People already think that." Another employee turned the corner and froze when she saw us. Her eyes widened before she hurried the opposite direction without even pretending she had made a mistake. The humiliation burned through me. Aiden noticed. "Come with me," he said gently. Not a command, not a demand, a request. A request from a man who never needed to request anything. He led me to a small conference room, no windows, no audience, just muted gray walls and a round table. The door clicked shut behind us, sealing the chaos outside. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I sat on one of the chairs because my legs were shaking. Aiden remained standing on the opposite side of the table, hands braced on the polished wood as if grounding himself. I kept my gaze down. He finally broke the silence. "You should not feel ashamed." I let out a strained laugh. "That is easy for you to say. You do not have people whispering you used your job to get close to someone powerful." His voice softened. "But you did not. I know that, and I will not let anyone rewrite the truth." His certainty stung, because I wished I believed it as easily as he did. But I had lived my whole life in the shadows, where truth rarely mattered as much as perception. I took a shaky breath. "Why does it matter to you so much?" I asked quietly. He froze, just slightly, the kind of freeze someone experiences when a question hits deeper than expected. Then he walked around the table slowly and sat in the chair next to mine, leaving just enough space to remain appropriate but close enough that I felt the shift in the air. "Because I saw something wrong and I could not pretend I did not," he said. "That should have been enough. It should have been the end of the conversation. But it was not." I lifted my eyes to his. "I have worked here for a year. You never noticed me, not once." The words slipped out before I could stop them. Raw, honest burdens I had carried too long. Aiden inhaled as if I had struck him. "You are right," he said after a long moment. "I did not. I walked past you every night like you were invisible. And then one night you were holding flowers, then another night you were holding fear, and suddenly I could not look away. My pulse skipped." He continued quietly. "I should have seen you before any of this. Not because rumors forced my attention, but because you have been here this whole time and I never took the time to see the people right in front of me." Shame flickered in his eyes. Not dramatic, not performative, but real. My voice trembled. "You do not have to feel guilty for not noticing me. I have spent most of my life being overlooked. It is easier." His response was immediate. "It is not easier. It is survival, and you should never have had to survive like that." Something broke inside me then. Not painfully, more like a seam finally loosening after being pulled too tight for too long. I whispered, "Why now, Aiden?" Why only when the flowers appeared? His gaze locked onto mine, steady, unflinching. "Because the flowers made everyone look at you," he said quietly. "And when they looked at you, I looked too. and what I saw made me wonder why I had not seen you all along. Heat rose behind my eyes. He was not saying it romantically, not dramatically, just truthfully in a way that felt heavier than anything I was ready to carry. I forced myself to breathe. People still think something is happening between us. His voice gentled. And nothing is, unless you want it to be. My breath hitched. He held up a hand immediately. That is not a proposition. I am not asking anything. I am clarifying that you have all the choice in this, not me, not the rumors. You, if you never want to speak to me again after today, I will respect that. But the truth is, I see you now, and I cannot pretend otherwise. I stared at him as the words curled into the quiet room, settling into places inside me I had not realized were empty. I whispered, I do not know how to handle this. His expression softened around the edges. Then let me be clear, he said. I am not stepping toward you. I am not blurring lines. I am not creating expectations. I am only acknowledging something I should have recognized much sooner. You do not deserve to be invisible. Not here, not anywhere. Silence settled between us, warm and fragile. Then he added more quietly, and if noticing you creates trouble, I will face the trouble, not you. It was too much. It was too honest. It was too dangerous. I stood up abruptly, needing air, needing space, needing anything other than the gravity pulling me toward him. I should get back to work. He rose with me but did not step closer. Of course. As I reached the door, he said my name again. Lila. I turned slightly, his voice lowered to something that felt like a confession. I finally see you, and I am not going to forget that. I gripped the door handle to steady myself because the truth was terrifying. Not because he saw me now, but because part of me wanted him to keep seeing me. And that was the very thing I was not supposed to feel. I returned to the 70th floor with trembling hands, but I forced myself into the familiar rhythm of work sweep, empty. Wipe repeat, because repetition was the only thing keeping me from replaying every word Aiden had said. I finally see you. It echoed in my chest like something dangerous wearing the shape of something comforting. I tried to drown it with the sound of the mop bucket wheels rattling across the polished floor, but the memory pressed against me stubborn and warm. I kept my head down, focusing on the tiles in front of me until a soft hum of the elevator pulled my gaze up. Aiden stepped out alone, coat-off sleeves rolled just enough to reveal the strain in his forearms like he had been pacing whole floors trying to quiet his thoughts. He paused when he saw me, and for a heartbeat, neither of us spoke, the air thin between us again. I did not expect you back up here, he said quietly. I swallowed. This is my floor, my shift. He nodded once, as if reminding himself he had no authority over that anymore after the HR decision he had demanded. He approached slowly, stopping a few feet away, maintaining the respectful distance he had promised. You left quickly earlier, he said. I did not know how to breathe around everything you said. His jaw tightened slightly. Then he spoke with careful honesty. I do not regret saying it. I only regret how heavy it must have felt landing on you all at once. A laugh slipped out soft and tired. It felt like too much. But also like something I never thought I would hear from someone like you. Someone like me, he echoed. Someone who walks through glass offices like he owns the world, I answered. Someone whose life has never been anything like mine. His expression changed then, not offended, not defensive, but something darker, something quieter, as if a door inside him creaked open. You think my life has been untouched by difficulty? He asked. You think wealth erases pain. I tightened my grip on the mop. Wealth erases certain kinds of pain, but not all pain, he said, and certainly not the kind that stays with you even when everything else changes. I did not respond because I sensed something fragile on the edge of his voice, something he had not planned to say, but needed to. He took a breath, his eyes drifting toward the glass wall where the city glowed beneath us. When I was young, he began slowly, my father taught me that people existed in categories. Those who mattered, and those who filled the background. Those who built the future, and those who merely supported it. His voice edged with old bitterness, something sharp that had never dulled. If I ever showed interest in someone he considered beneath our status, he made sure I paid for it. I blinked, surprised. He continued. He built cross-capital on efficiency and hierarchy, and for years I believed him. I walked through rooms without seeing the people cleaning them. I walked past you without seeing you. His breath shook once, almost undetectable. Not because you were invisible, but because I was blind. The words hit me like a wave, soft but heavy. You were not blind, I whispered. You were busy. You were running a company. That is not an excuse, he said quietly. My father taught me to value the wrong things, and I let myself follow that path far longer than I should have. There was a sadness in him that felt older than the skyscraper we stood in. Something inherited, something unhealed. I stepped closer without thinking, just a little, just enough to see the fissures behind his composed exterior. What happened to him? I asked. Aiden looked down at his hands as if the answers were written in the lines of his palms. He cared about power more than people, he said. When my mother got sick, he refused to take time away from the company. Said she was already dying and business waited for no one. The cruelty of those words tightened a knot in my throat. I whispered, "That is awful." Aiden closed his eyes briefly. The last thing she said to me before she died was, "Do not become him." But I did. Slowly, quietly, piece by piece, until recently, until you, my heart clenched. Me, he nodded. You were kind to someone who was invisible to everyone else. Mr. Ward told me what you did for him. You stayed with him during a heart episode until the ambulance came. You held his hand even though you did not know him. You were not paid to care, you just cared. I felt the heat rise behind my eyes, but I forced myself to breathe steady. I was there. He needed someone. And the world does not stop needing care just because someone is poor. His voice softened. I know, but you lived that truth long before I understood it. My throat tightened. He was giving me credit for something simple, something I had never thought twice about, but in his world where humanity was often optional, maybe kindness was rare enough to matter. He continued. I saw you long before I let myself acknowledge it. Little moments, small things. The way you checked the temperature of the cleaning water with your wrist before using it. The way you made sure to pick up stray pens from the floor so no one tripped. The way you smiled at the night guards even when you were exhausted. Each memory he named felt like threads weaving into something warm, something frighteningly intimate. I had no idea you noticed any of that, I whispered. He looked at me fully. That is the problem, I noticed, but I did not see, not really, not until the flowers forced my attention. I drew in a breath. The flowers did not mean anything romantic, I know he said, but they made people look at you, and when they did, I felt something I could not name. Fear, maybe. Fear of losing something I had not even allowed myself to value yet. The air between us thickened. I whispered, Aiden, you cannot feel anything like that. You are my boss. I am not, he said gently, not anymore. And I am not saying this to cross boundaries. I am saying it because it is the truth. I see you, and it scares me. His honesty made me feel unsteady, like standing on the edge of something beautiful and dangerous. I exhaled slowly. I should not matter to you this much. Something flickered across his face. You matter because you exist, Lila, not because of what I can or cannot be to you. My voice cracked. You talk like you know me. He stepped closer. Only if you let me. Only if you want me to. His tone carried no pressure, only an offering. I held his gaze for a long moment. Then, without fully meaning to, I whispered, The truth is, I am tired of being unseen. His eyes softened in a way that made my breath falter. Then let me see you, he murmured, not as a maid, not as an employee, just as you. I felt something unravel inside me, not fully, but enough that the ache in my chest loosened. In that quiet space between us, I realized something terrifying. Our wounds were different, but they touched. His wound was built from privilege, mine from invisibility, both shaped by people who believed they had the right to decide our worth. and somehow in this vast, cold building we had found each other in the shadow of those wounds. I looked at him one last time, steadying my breath. "We share the same loneliness," I whispered. He nodded slowly, eyes locked with mine. "And maybe that is why I cannot ignore you anymore." Something inside me trembled. But for the first time it did not feel like fear. It felt like possibility. The 70th floor emptied slowly as midnight crept across New York. Desks dimmed one by one, the city lights flickered against the glass like distant fires, and the quiet hum of ventilation filled the silence that followed long workdays. I finished wiping down the last marble counter in the executive lounge, letting the soft circular motions calm the shake still lingering in my hands from everything Aiden had confessed earlier. My chest felt full and unsteady, as if each breath pushed against something new, something fragile forming inside me. I tried to focus on work the way I always had, sweeping, gathering, organizing, polishing. But my thoughts kept drifting back to his voice, his honesty, his eyes when he said, "Let me see you." My heart was not steady enough for those words. Not tonight, maybe not ever. I gathered my supplies, pushing the cart toward the service elevator when the soft sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway. Crisp, steady, unhurried. Aiden had a particular way of walking, precise and restrained, like he measured each step before taking it. I knew it was him before I even turned. He stood at the end of the corridor, hands in his coat pockets, posture straight but not tense. The lighting behind him cast a faint glow around his shoulders, almost cinematic in the sterile corporate hallway. I froze, gripping the cart handle a little too hard. "I thought you had gone home hours ago," I said, keeping my voice neutral. He walked toward me slowly, stopping a few feet away. Respectful distance, as always, since the HR meeting. "I tried," he said, "but my mind was here." My heart stumbled at that, but I kept my expression steady. "You should rest. You have early meetings tomorrow." He nodded once. "I will. After this." My breath caught. After what? He reached into his coat pocket, and for a moment I thought maybe he had paperwork or a note from HR or something else official. But when he slowly withdrew his hand, I exhaled shakily. A single white rose rested between his fingers. No wrapper, no ribbon, no extravagance. Just simplicity. Just intention. My pulse quickened. Aiden held it gently, as though the flower carried weight far beyond its stem. I hesitated. "That is not for me, is it?" He stepped forward slightly, offering the rose between us. "It is." My chest tightened. "Maiden," I whispered. "You know what people will say if they see this?" He nodded with quiet seriousness. "That is why I waited until the floor was empty. It is not a statement. It is not a rumor being fed. It is a truth I want to give you, and only you." I stared at the rose, unable to move. This is different from the bouquets that appeared in the night, elegant, mysterious, nerve-wracking. This was one flower, one intention, one choice. I could not breathe. Why? He held my gaze the way he had earlier, steady, warm, searching. Because you deserve something that is not whispered to you in secret. Something that is not left for someone to find and twist into a story. Something that is offered openly, directly, honestly. My throat tightened. "Aiden, this crosses boundaries. I do not want to be responsible for hurting your career or mine." He shook his head gently. "You are not responsible for anything except your own choice. I am the one making a decision tonight. Not as a CEO, not as your superior, but as someone who has been blind for too long." His voice softened. "I will not take a step toward you unless you decide you want me there." The rose trembled slightly in his hand, as if reflecting the tremor in his restraint. I swallowed hard. Part of me wanted to step back, create space, regain footing. Another part of me wanted to reach for the flower because it had been so long since anything in my life felt like it was meant for me. Not for my labor, not for my usefulness, for me. He seemed to sense my inner conflict because he added quietly, "This flower does not ask for anything. It does not mean anything has to change. It is simply a moment of truth." My voice cracked. And what truth is that? His eyes softened with something warm and hesitant, like sunlight trying to reach inside a room that had been dark too long. That I see you, and I want you to have something beautiful that does not come with fear. I blinked rapidly to keep tears back. You should not say things like that. Why? Because it hurts, I whispered. Because I am not ready. A flicker of sorrow passed across his face, but he did not step closer, did not push, did not try to fill the silence with reassurances. He simply nodded with understanding that felt deeper than any comfort. Then we move at your pace, he said gently, or we do not move at all. The rose remained between us, bridging the quiet. I slowly reached out my hand, not touching the flower yet, just hovering over it. My voice trembled. If I take it, people will think there is something between us. His answer came without hesitation. Let them think. I stiffened. I cannot afford that. I know, he said quietly. And that is why this is your choice, not mine, not the rumor mill. Yours. My heart quivered at the weight of that respect. I had never been given that kind of autonomy with anyone, especially not with someone who lived a life built on power. I took a long, unsteady breath. Then I said the only truth I could hold on to without collapsing. I am not ready for you. A faint sadness crossed his eyes, but then something gentler replaced it, something like acceptance. He lowered the rose just an inch. Then just walk beside me, he whispered. No expectations, no timelines, just beside. My hand moved before my mind approved. I took the flower slowly, petals cool against my fingertips, stem smooth and trembling lightly like it knew the moment mattered. Aiden released it carefully, as if letting go meant something to him too. I looked at the rose in my hand, then back at him. My voice came out soft but steady. No promises. His reply matched mine. No pressure, just truth. And in that small, quiet hallway where rumors could not reach us, where expectations could not suffocate us. I held the simplest, most terrifying gesture I had ever been given. Not love, not yet, but the beginning of being seen. I whispered almost without breath, "Thank you." Aiden shifted just enough that the faintest smile touched the corner of his mouth. It was not triumphant, not expectant, just warm. "You are welcome, Lila. I will see you tomorrow," he said. "Only if you want to." My heart thudded softly. I think I do. His smile deepened almost imperceptibly. Then good night. He stepped back slowly, creating space again, honoring every boundary while still leaving the softness of the moment intact. When the elevator doors closed behind him, I looked down at the single white rose in my hand. For the first time in years, something inside me felt light. Not safe, not certain, but seen. 1 month later, the 70th floor looked different. Not because the furniture had changed or because Cross Capital had remodeled, but because I no longer walked through it like a ghost. My feet still moved quietly out of habit. My hands still carried muscle memory from years of trying not to take up space. But something inside me had shifted. People no longer looked through me. Some nodded politely. Some offered small smiles. A few still watched too closely, hoping new rumors would surface, but their stares no longer sank into my skin the way they once did. I had learned to hold myself differently. Not louder, not brighter, just present. And that alone changed everything. I now worked a daytime shift, something I never thought I would have the courage to request, but HR had offered it without hesitation, maybe out of guilt, maybe out of fear of mismanaging the situation again. But it did not matter. The sunlight in the building made everything feel warmer and more honest. My pay was the same, my tasks were the same, but my days felt less lonely, especially around noon, because that was when Aiden would find me. Not in secret, not in some forbidden corner, but openly in the cafeteria where employees and managers all mingled together over overpriced salads and too much coffee. The first time he showed up at my lunch table, conversations around us slowed but did not stop. People noticed, but they no longer assumed. Maybe because his presence had shifted too. Aiden Cross had not transformed overnight, but something about him had softened in ways the company quietly absorbed. He listened more, walked slower, remembered names he used to forget. Some called it PR, some called it growth, but I knew the truth. He had begun to see the world differently, and truthfully, so had I. Today he arrived with 2 coffees, one hand holding each cup delicately so he would not spill on his suit. When he sat across from me, sunlight cut across his jawline and he looked more like a man than a CEO. He slid 1 cup toward me. "No sugar," he said. "I have been watching you pretend you like the sweet ones when people give them to you." Heat touched my cheeks. "You notice too much." He smiled faintly. "I am learning to notice the right things." We ate quietly for a moment, watching employees shuffle in and out of the cafeteria. A few waved at him, a few waved at me. Some did double takes when they realized they were waving at the 2 of us sitting at the same table. Aiden did not react to any of it. Everything about him was steady in a way that made me feel steady too. After lunch, he walked me to the lobby, something he did often enough that it had become routine, but not so often that it drew suspicion. When we reached the wide marble steps leading to the main doors, he stopped and looked at me the way he always did before we parted for the afternoon. Not possessive, not hesitant. Just attentive. "How is your mother?" he asked quietly. "Better today," I said. "She likes the new medication." He nodded, relief softening his features. "And you?" I took a breath, letting the cool spring air settle over me. "I am learning, 1 moment at a time." His eyes warmed. "That is enough." Something fluttered inside me, the familiar mix of uncertainty and safety that always followed him. I gestured toward the elevators. "Should you not be upstairs in some important meeting?" He exhaled. I pushed the meeting back. "Why, because I would rather walk you to the door." The words landed softly but deeply like petals floating onto water. Not heavy, not dramatic, just real. A silence drifted between us, the kind that felt like choice rather than accident. Then he cleared his throat and reached into his coat pocket. My breath caught because for one suspended moment I wondered if he had brought another flower, but instead he pulled out a small folded napkin from the cafeteria. Gently, he placed it into my hand. I looked at him confused. "Open it," he said. I unfolded the napkin slowly, revealing a single white petal pressed between its creases, still holding the faintest trace of sweetness. He spoke quietly. "You gave me the flower that night," he said. "So today I am giving you a piece of what it gave me." I blinked. "And what is that?" He smiled softly. "Perspective. A reminder that something small can change the way you move through the world." I traced the edge of the petal with my thumb. It felt light, fragile, meaningful. I whispered, "I am not ready for anything more." "I know, and I am not asking." He stepped back half a pace, giving me air while keeping his gaze warm. "I just want you to know that you are allowed to be seen. You are allowed to exist without shrinking. You are allowed to have space in any room you walk into." My throat tightened. "I do not always know how to take up space." "Then we will learn together," he said simply. "No pressure, no timelines, just truth." I closed my fingers around the petal, feeling its small weight. And for the first time in a long time, the idea of not being invisible no longer scared me. It felt possible. Beautiful, even. When I stepped outside onto the bustling New York sidewalk, the city stretched endlessly ahead of me, neon lights gleaming like open doors, traffic humming like the world breathing around me. And I felt something I had not felt in years. Hope. I turned back one last time. Aiden still stood inside the lobby glass, reflecting behind him. He lifted his hand slightly, not a wave, not a signal, just a presence. I mirrored the gesture, just as small and simple and true. Then I walked into the city with the white petal pressed against my palm and the knowledge that being seen was no longer something to fear. It was something to grow into. If you reached this moment, then maybe you felt what thousands of people around the world quietly carry every day, the ache of being unseen. The longing to be acknowledged, the fear of stepping forward in a world that often rewards the loud and overlooks the gentle. Lila's story is not just a romance. It is a mirror, a reminder, a whisper that even the quietest person in the room deserves to be noticed not because of status or power or beauty, but because they exist. And if her journey meant something to you even a little, I want to ask you a simple question before you scroll away. When was the last time you felt truly seen? And when was the last time you made someone else feel seen? These stories take hours and hours to craft not just the writing, but the emotion, the shaping, the pacing, the slow burn that you tell me you love so much. If Lila and Aiden's story touched your heart even for a moment, you can help this channel grow simply by tapping, so the algorithm knows you want more of these emotional, slow burn billionaire romances. And if you want to stay with this community, if you want to hear the next story where two people find each other against all odds, then hit subscribe because that one simple tap tells me that you want this little corner of the internet to continue existing. Leave a comment, too, even one sentence. Tell me where you are watching, from what part you felt the most deeply, which moment stayed with you long after the scene ended. Was it when the first bouquet appeared with no explanation? Was it when Aiden finally admitted the truth he had been afraid to name? Was it when Lila held that single white rose in the quiet corridor? Or was it when she walked into the sunlight at the end holding only a petal and her own worth? Let me know because your comments shape the next story I write. And if you want more stories in this exact style, slow burn, emotional undulation, Billionaire meets Ordinary Girl, two hearts meeting in the quiet spaces of life, then tell me in the comments and I will build the next tale just for you. Maybe you want a CEO who hides his grief behind power. Maybe a cowboy with a wounded past. Maybe a single dad who finds love where he least expects it. Maybe a runaway bride who meets someone who finally understands her silence. Just say it below. I read every single message you send. And if you feel comfortable, share this video with someone who needs it, friend who feels invisible, a sibling who doubts their worth, or even someone secretly soft-hearted who pretends they are made of steel. Stories grow when they are shared. Our community grows when you choose to let others feel the same warmth you felt today. And before you go, I want to leave you with one last thought. Sometimes in life you do not need a bouquet of flowers or a billionaire noticing you to feel worthy. Sometimes all you need is one moment, one gesture, one person who looks at you and says, "I see you. If no one has told you that lately, let me be the one. I see you. I appreciate you, and I'm grateful you are here." Thank you for being part of this story. Thank you for supporting this channel. Thank you for giving these characters a place to live inside your heart. Now, tell me in the comments, what story should we explore next? And where in the world are you watching from? I cannot wait to read your answers.